Ladies and gentlemen, this episode you are about to listen to has been brought to you by GuitarPlayback.com. GuitarPlayback.com has all of your guitar needs, including jam tracks, video lessons, map tracks, and more. Enter in the coupon code PODCAST at checkout for 50% off your next order. GuitarPlayback.com. Ignite your musical personality.
Welcome to Entertainment Drive-Thru. Today's special is from Gambale, Grammy-winning guitar virtuoso.
Quiet on the set.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to
Hello, welcome to Entertainment Drive-Thru. I'm Anna, with me is my co-host Dan, and today we have a very special guest. He's a Grammy-winning guitar virtuoso. I can't even pronounce it, that's how fancy he is. He's an inspired songwriter with over 200 songs published on over 20 albums. He's a gifted composer, brilliant innovator, and author of numerous instructional books and DVDs. He's known for his sweep-picking technique, and he has his own type of tuning. He's toured around the world with all different types of artists. I'm so excited to welcome, joining us via Skype, here's the one, the only, from Gambale!
Yeah, welcome to the show.
Oh, hey, good morning. Hey, you forgot to say all-around nice guy.
I know. I just,
you don't know me that well, I guess.
I thought legend was just covered. He's just a legend. He's amazing. I mean,
I always say leg end.
oh, leg end.
Nice.
I like that.
Well, how are you?
I'm great. Couldn't be better.
I love talking to the
in bet-
Aussies. They're always so friendly. Is that like a
Well,
thing?
it's the clean air and the high standard of living, and it's a beautiful, beautiful first world country.
Nice. I like that.
We have no worries, lots of sunshine, incredible beaches, but I don't live there anymore, sadly. I live here in LA.
With the smog.
I always said I love LA because I always say I don't like air you can't see. I don't trust it.
Well, and you've been out of Australia for quite a while now.
Yeah, since the early 80s, actually.
Oh.
So that's about 75 years.
Yeah. And why the move?
Well, like a lot of kids from various parts of the world, we have dreams. And my dream was to follow my music muse. Mm-hmm. And, from a very young age, from the time I was about 13, I discovered a lot of music that I really liked, which was kind of more on the jazz side of things and the fusion side of things, which is, rock and jazz kind of crunching together.
Right.
All my favorite records at the time were being recorded in L.A. I'd look at the back cover and say, L.A., Hollywood, L.A. I said, I have to go.
Right.
It was just this big magnet drawing me in, So, so eventually I came over and I never went back,
Wow.
That was it.
You just got here and you were hooked.
Well, yeah, I just saw the caliber of musicians and I was just completely inspired,
Right.
And then I started forming groups of my own and playing around the LA clubs and, eventually got discovered by some of my heroes, actually.
Wow.
Kind of like destiny.
And who were some of your heroes?
Well, there's many. I mean, I started listening as a kid to Hendrix and stuff. Of course, I couldn't play with him anymore. But, others like Chick Corea. When I discovered Chick Corea, the famous jazz pianist, I was 13 years old.
Wow.
So now, since 1986, when I first auditioned for him, I've been working with him on and off ever since. So that was a real dream come true. And the thing I love about him is that he's one of the great jazz legends that loves electric loud guitar. There aren't many, usually they prefer a saxophone or something a little quieter,
But you get up there, you just crank the distortion, you're like, all right, let's do this. Let's play some
Yeah,
Spain.
I mean, Chick loves that sound, and of course so do I. And you need that sound to make a guitar scream and howl,
Absolutely.
Right?
And you went to the Musicians Institute, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, yes, I did. And for me at the time, I had a couple of options, because I wanted to stay in the U.S. for a number of, a long enough period so that I could really see what was going on in L.A. at the time.
Yeah.
And my options were 6-month visa as a tourist, or I could stay a year and 6 months if I was a student for a year. And then I could extend with 6 more months as a student, as a tourist after that.
So you didn't go to the school because you wanted to go to the school. You went because you had to.
Well,
That's a lot of the foreigners.
Let's just say it was my best option at the time. And actually, I can draw a straight line from that school to Chick Corea. The events, yes. And had I not gone there, things may have turned out very differently. I don't know.
Wow.
Because one of the teachers that was teaching there at the time was a very well-known bass player by the name of Jeff Berlin. And he was recording an album, and I eventually started playing with him. And the album was being recorded in a studio called Mad Hatter in L.A., which was owned by Chick Corea. So, I remember recording there and being in awe of the studio because most of my favorite records have been recorded right in that room.
Right.
And, I was a kid. My mouth was open, wide open, gawking at this place. And it was a 2-story place. The studio was upstairs, and downstairs was all Chick's management and office and secretary. And one day I was loading my gear in the car after one of the sessions, and a woman came out of the office. And, I just went, I have to leave her my card. I don't know who she is, but I have to go up there. And I say, look, if Chick Corea ever needs a guitar player, you got to call me. And I gave her my card. She looks at it and says, Frank Gambale, my husband's played with you.
Really?
He says you're really good. And I went, really? Who's your husband? And it was a guy called Tom Breckline, who I saw with Chick Corea when he was 21, a drummer.
No kidding.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, such a prodigy. He went on to play with a lot of people, Kenny Loggins, and a huge number of names. And she said, "Yeah, I'll hang on to your card." And I said, "Great." And 6 months later, I got a call for an audition. So, I mean, I can draw a straight line from, the music school to this opportunity. So, it was definitely.
And I have to say, it's amazing. I mean, those kinds of opportunities do happen in, LA and Hollywood.
Yeah, well, it wouldn't happen back in Canberra, Australia, that's for sure.
Right?
And I always say you create your own luck. There's no such thing as luck. They define it as preparation meeting opportunity.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So you go make your luck. If I hadn't decided to make the move, nothing would have happened. And I tell that to students all the time.
Exactly.
You love what you got to go near where it's all happening.
Right. And how did you get started with the guitar?
Oh, I was lucky that I was the youngest of 3 boys in my family, and my 2 older brothers got interested in around the time they were about 10 or 11 years old. So we were all jamming at the time, and there was only 1 or 2 guitars, so we kind of had a bit of a hassle fighting over who was going to play it. But I was lucky that I was the youngest. I was about 6 at the time, and my brothers, got interested in football and girls and other stuff, and I was still too young for all that.
Nice.
So I was the one practicing, and I've been serious and practicing ever since then. I mean, I haven't really relented that much since.
What was the first song you played on guitar? Do you remember?
It was a Jimi Hendrix tune called "Hey Joe."
Oh, sweet.
That's
Quickly followed. Huh?
I was gonna say that's pretty complex for a first song.
Well, I was patient.
Now,
I just loved the sound of it. There was another one called Little Wing that I heard it and I went, how do you do that? I had to piece it together by ear. I mean, it was rewarding.
Were your parents musical or?
Well, my dad, I was jokingly in a musical way say that my dad taught me polytonality, which means 2 harmonies going at the same time, because God bless him, he was a contractor guy, and he worked really hard on building sites, and he would come home exhausted, every day. But he would pick up he had a button accordion that he just loved to play, and most of the time he could bang out a pretty good tune, like an Italian something or other. My parents were Italian, and as a kid I used to put my head on his knee, and sometimes the left hand and the right hand were in two different keys, and it was really out there, kind of like way out jazz, And he didn't have a clue. He was as happy as a clam, just playing. And my eyeballs would be rolling around in my head going, wow. So that it was like polytonality, I think my dad gave me a jazz ear because he was playing stuff wrong, and it was kind of cool at the same time.
All right, well, we're going to take a quick break to listen to a clip from Sun Will Shine by Frank Gambale featuring Boca on vocals. We'll be right back. And I wanted to ask you, when is that moment that you decided that being a musician was exactly what you wanted to do? It wasn't going to be being a kangaroo boxing instructor. You wanted to be a musician.
There was never a decision in my case, Mm-hmm. Again, it was sort of predetermined or a destiny, because I was already working professional at 13 in clubs with my older brother. He was dragging me into clubs, and I was playing, And they said, look, we promise he won't drink, We'll keep him away.
Right.
And it actually put me off booze and drugs for the rest of my life, that young age, because people, would come up all completely, can I say shit-faced?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, you just did.
They'd say, "Can you play Running Bear?" which was an incredibly stupid song, and I went, "Boy, I never want to be like that." So,
right.
Thank God for that little experience. Although musicians are famous for being, heavy partiers, but I don't know how you can do all that stuff and still be clear enough to play, and especially the music that I play requires full attention.
I can imagine.
Full attention.
See, it's funny. When I was a kid, I actually wanted all of that until I realized that all my favorites died from it.
Yeah, right.
At a very early age, and I was thinking, well, on that off chance that I don't make it that early in life, it might be a good idea to not do it. Just stay alive.
Yeah, no, I could see it was a one-way street.
Yeah.
But I can understand a lot of it, because, there's a lot of pressure on artists to perform,
Oh, yeah.
And especially when you become this giant, if I, thank God I'm nowhere near that, but this giant icon, a world icon, people look up to you from every corner, and to somehow lead the way, or lead the opinion, or lead the fashion, or, and that's a tremendous, that takes a lot out of humans, because every person, no matter how big an icon they are at the end of the day, they're still a human being,
Absolutely.
And the thing is, with musicians especially, we spend a lot of time alone honing our craft. So social skills are a bit amiss at times.
That's true.
Because they haven't had the social interaction. The other kids are out interacting in high school and school, while the musicians are in the music room. At least this, I'm talking for myself. I was in the music room practicing because I love guitar, and I just thought whatever the kids were doing at the time as a young teen was frivolous and pointless,
Yeah.
So in a way, I was doing all the work then, and now I'm doing all the playing. So I sort of flipped it around.
Right. And one of the things you're most known for is your sweep picking technique. Do you want to tell us a little bit about how did you get started doing that, and what was the reason behind it?
In essence, the difference is, I'll just tell you what it is first.
Okay.
In a nutshell, most guitar players, when they pick, if they're organized, will use a pretty good alternate picking style, which means strict up and down no matter what. Like at whatever speed, they're always going up and down from one note to the next. Mm-hmm. When I play, to go between strings, whenever I want to go one string to the next adjacent string, I use the same picking direction. Mm-hmm. So I only pick one time for 2 notes if there's 2 strings, or 3 notes. I go one sweep stroke, like a brush stroke, right across the strings. Mm-hmm. And I do that in both directions, between 2 strings, across 3, across 4, or across the entire 6 strings.
Right.
And it became known as sweeping. In fact, when I first wrote my first book on the subject in 1984, while I was still a student at GIT, mm-hmm. The publisher wouldn't let me call it sweeping.
No.
Really?
Yeah, because they said nobody's going to know what it is, because there was no precedent. It's amazing how much information is out there on what to play on an instrument.
Right.
Musically speaking, chord shapes, scales, all this stuff, but almost nothing on actually how to pick with the right hand. And it's 50% of a guitar. You got one hand on the fretboard, you got the other hand down there picking away.
Exactly.
And most guitar players are terribly disorganized with the right hand. Terrible. It's the truth. I do seminars all over the world. I've seen it all.
Oh, yeah.
My desire to play, after about 10 years of playing guitar, I got a bit fed up with guitar players because they all seemed, at the time, to be playing the same one scale over and over and over, blues, pentatonic kind of stuff. And, all the people that most of the general public, when they idolize a guitar player, it's generally someone who's playing very basic stuff. I mean, to my ear, very, very basic stuff. God bless them that they broke through and they put a great group together and they had great songs. But generally speaking, I mean, from a purely objective standpoint, what they're playing isn't difficult.
Right.
It's very basic. I would consider it very basic. And I'm in a position to say that because I've played guitar all my life, right? I broke away from guitar and I started listening to like Chick Corea, and there was a horn player, a saxophonist called Michael Brecker, who I admired tremendously, as one of the greatest soloists that's ever been on the planet, in my opinion, along with Chick Corea. And I tried to learn their solos and music on the guitar, which was incredibly difficult. Because, to make that kind of transference is much. I could listen to a guitar, for example, and I could tell you what finger they're using on what string. That's how in tune I had become with the guitar.
Wow.
But with a piano or a saxophone, it was kind of like an open slate. I had to choose where the notes would go on the guitar and how they would be played. And some of the phrases were so difficult that I just had to find somehow a way to play these incredible lines and notes on the guitar, which I'd never heard before.
Yeah.
Played on the guitar. So it's sort of, those were my inspirational figures that kind of forced this technique out of me. A lot of guitar players reach this physical barrier. The instrument is a beast, really.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
To master to the point where you have this incredible freedom to literally play just about anything you want to play. Mm-hmm. It takes many, 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 many years to do that. And I wanted to push through the physical barrier because, look, I make this analogy with sweeping. Sweeping to me, let's compare alternate picking for a second. Mm-hmm. To me, alternate picking is like a car driving down the freeway at about 80 miles an hour in third gear, right?
Okay.
To play the fast tempos, the real fast lines, you have to put out an incredible amount of energy. Yeah. And people tense up. I just see it in their faces, Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sweeping, to play those faster tempos, is like going 80 miles an hour in a brand new BMW in sixth gear, right? The engine is purring, right? And that's how it feels once you get it. I mean, you can play these absurd velocities. That's if you want to play fast.
Yeah.
To me, it's like an extra tool in the kit. I hammer on and pull off and do all the other guitar techniques too. But when I want to go fast, it's sweeping. And it's that sixth gear in a nice new BMW. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, and I also wanted to know, in terms of everything that you've done so far, what would you say are one of your best gigs and one of your worst gigs?
Well, gee whiz. Okay. Well, I've done a lot of crappy gigs, so it would be hard to find just one.
It's called being a musician, I noticed.
Yeah, right.
That's for sure. It's incredible that in 2011, the whole year I was on tour with Chick Corea's Return to Forever. Mm-hmm. And to me, that was the best tour I've ever done. I mean, I could happily retire,
Nice.
in terms of, wow, first class all the way in some of the best venues on the planet.
Wow.
And, I got to play the Sydney Opera House, for example,
that must
to a
be
full
amazing.
house. Yeah, for Australian kid to go home and play the Opera House is pretty sweet.
Yeah.
And I had my family there, and it was just, I've been quite blessed in that regard,
Right.
I've had some incredible gigs. I'll tell you, one of my favorite venues in the world is a place in France called Jazz in Vienne, Vienne. It's just south of Lyon. And it's this incredible ancient Roman amphitheater, which is it goes very high, very fast. It's not exactly like your usual amphitheaters. But walking out onto that stage is one of the most beautiful sensations of any venue in the world for me.
Wow.
Worst gig, let's see, gee whiz, I can't think of any one that stands out, but I'll put my mind on it. It'll come out in a little bit.
Okay, so
Sounds
just randomly we'll be asking you about something, and you'll go, oh, you know what? I've got my worst gig.
Yeah, because I don't want to mention any people's names. Hey, this was the worst artist I ever worked for.
Trust me, I completely understand that. We'll just let it at, you know what? You've had some bad gigs.
Yeah.
I've had my share.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of worst gig, what has been your biggest challenge so far, and how have you overcome it?
Well, lately I had just recently I had this incredible rant every now and then I rant on Facebook, because when at the plight of musicians in general with the peer-to-peer stuff and everybody stealing, I call it stealing. I don't care what anybody says.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to candy coat what it is. It's actual stealing of intellectual property. Mm-hmm. Now, a lot of people, this to me is our greatest challenge as artists, musicians, filmmakers, authors. We're all in the same plight. Mm-hmm. Sales have plummeted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We need to be supported as artists to be able to make a living, to create beautiful art that the world loves and needs. Mm-hmm. And when you have someone like me who's spent my entire life honing my craft, I can only say that the circle is broken. When I make a product and I put it out there and a month later it's on every peer-to-peer website and my sales are pitiful and the returns don't justify the investment, there's two choices. I, stop doing it and find something else that will pay me a living and help support my family. Mm-hmm. Or I don't do it and I find something else to help support my family.
Right.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, just recently I was thinking, what would really be a push in the right direction, at least in my opinion, is, I feel like with all the music that's out there today, it's overwhelming. And I feel like the reason why people are so into, downloading the music for free is that there's so much, and it's hard to say, oh, I want to get this new one, but I know nothing about it. And I think one of the things that would push us in the right direction is, with Spotify and, I hate talking about them, but Pandora, all of that, kind of gave us that right direction of spending a little bit of, like with Spotify, spending, what is it, like $8 a month, and you get to listen to all the music you want. But I think what would be great is if they had a way, and I don't know how the hell they would do this, but have a way of having every time someone listens to a song for the first time, that artist gets 99 cents. So it's like the person bought it on iTunes, but then they can listen to it as many times as they want, and they're just paying a monthly fee.
That's an interesting idea. The existing Spotify model and Pandora and all those, at this point in time, utterly, completely, entirely sucks for the art.
Oh, it's awful for the artist.
I mean, to be paid 0.0000009 cents a spin is pathetic.
Yeah.
It really is.
And I don't know who made these deals, but it certainly wasn't the artists.
Right.
Now, these people are making millions of dollars. You look at that .com guy, and you see the size of his house in New Zealand.
Right.
It's can only be described as a small town. On the backs of artists, I just, recently, the rant I had before this current one was about Spotify, and I took a stand, and I have taken all my music but 2 songs off of Spotify and all those internet radio stations because I feel very strongly that they are ripping us off. Now, the problem is, musicians tend to shoot themselves in the foot. We're not unionized. We're not together as a strong front because some musicians will go, well, you've been in the business too long. You've made enough money. I just want to be heard. And they'll put their music out there for free, which hurts everybody.
Yes,
I mean, it's just. So I left 2 songs because the biggest argument on Spotify, from what I heard back on Facebook, was that, well, that's how I discovered your music, man. Okay, well, I leave 2 songs there. I don't need to have my entire catalog there.
Yeah.
And if you really love the music that you hear or you got a nice taste, you'll go to my website or iTunes or anywhere else and buy it legitimately. Problem is, with these peer-to-peer sites, my beef is with the internet search engines. And I think we need to – I'm actually considering trying to get some musicians together to have a class action suit against Google, Yahoo, and all these big search engines who are what I call the gateway to all these peer-to-peer sites. They're all in Russia and Belarus and all these, Eastern Bloc countries that are lawless to begin with, that provide a gateway for anybody in the search. You put my name in Google and you'll reach hundreds of peer-to-peer sites that have all my music, all my books, all my videos, everything I've ever produced, even articles in magazines that have some sort of information are there for free.
Yeah.
This cannot go on like this. If we can't stop, and obviously we can't stop the scum mafia in Russia from making millions of dollars off the backs of all musicians and artists and book authors and movie makers. But we can stop the gateway, which is Google. And I've seen video of testimony that's happened just recently, and I can't believe, you see this person from Google squirming because they won't answer a fundamental question that they or are they not the gateway to this stuff? And they absolutely are. And they could stop it if they wanted to, but they're making money too.
Well, and I think though, and this is a question I've always wondered is why is it that musicians and actors and comedians, all of our stuff is, essentially, like you said, stolen from us, and it seems to be the only industry out there that people do this. And I realized the truth is
intellectual property.
Well, and I realized if you think about it, this is all stuff that becomes digital. And if you look at any other service out there, what are other digital services that people do? And if you look at all of them, they're all pirated. They're all stolen.
They're all suffering.
And I always thought it was so amusing. And my friend Andrew and I used to joke about this all the time, was they used to have a commercial that they would show in the movie theaters before they would show a movie. And it would have the person going to like a store and putting something in their coat pocket and stealing it. And it would say like, you wouldn't steal from a market. And then it says you wouldn't download a car. And we're thinking, actually, if we could download a car.
Oh, yeah.
In
my rant, I said, if we could download pizza, we'd all be fucked because nobody would want to make food.
Yeah.
You have to grow your own.
Well, speaking of challenging moments, we actually have a brand new challenge for you today.
Good thing I'm sitting down.
Yeah, right. Well, we're up to our segment, the question of the week. Question of the week. Have you ever had that dream where you're sweeping and shredding it up on guitar like Frank Gambale? But in the real world, you don't even know where to begin. Or maybe you do, but you've hit a wall. GuitarPlayback.com is a website dedicated to helping out people just like you. It's got video lessons, jam tracks, licks, David Walliman's revolutionary map tracks, and quite a bit of free stuff as well. So what do you say we make that dream a reality? Head on over to GuitarPlayback.com and get 50% off your next order by entering in the coupon code PODCAST at checkout. That's half off your next order. Remember, GuitarPlayback.com. Ignite your musical personality. So in this segment, we'll ask our interviewees a new question every week, and they have to think of the funniest answer that they can come up with. To our listeners, write in your questions on our Facebook at facebook.com/entertainmentdrivethru and our Twitter at eDriveThru, and we just might use it as the question of the week. Now, Frank, are you ready?
No.
No. All right.
Yes, I am. Okay, go.
All right. So, question is, what is one of the funniest or most embarrassing things you've ever seen or done in the studio or on tour?
Most embarrassing things. Oh, okay. I have a good example. It's I think it was Sly Stone.
Really?
Years ago, I was at the LA Coliseum, and there was this big funk festival, and a lot of artists were playing. Mm-hmm. And it was during the day, but as the sun was setting, what band was playing? I think it was, I don't remember which band was playing, but it was the final act. Mm-hmm. And people were sitting in the seats, the police were there guarding the track. They didn't want anybody on the track.
Right.
And so the group was kind of far away, but, everybody was enjoying themselves all day. I was there for the whole day. And, it was Bobby Womack's band. That's what it was. It was Bobby Womack.
Ah.
And, the sun started to go down, and Bobby Womack, halfway through his show, he says, "We got a special guest for you, Sly Stone." And everybody roars, "Yeah, Sly Stone." Sly comes on. The first thing he says, "Hey, everybody, come on down." He's motioning to everybody to come on down. So people are jumping over the thing. And oh, man, there was thousands of people running. There's no way the cops could stop him,
Oh, no.
And then within seconds, literally about a minute, the lights went off, and then boom, the power went out, and that was the end. End of the festival. I mean, it just ended like that.
Oh, no.
In 1 second, he brought the whole place down. It was hilarious.
I like how you talk about how they have like the security and the police just guarding these tracks, and then, of course, Superstar goes, "Hey, come on down."
Hey, come
and
on down.
All the cops are thinking, "God damn it."
And so they paid him back. They pulled the power, and that was it.
Oh, yeah,
Lights out, power out.
That's it. Everybody go home. That's it.
That's it. The show's over.
Special guest. Oh.
God, that is classic.
Talk about timing, too. You're just announcing the special guest, and that's it.
Pulling the fire alarm.
Oh my goodness. That is epic. But anyway, getting back to the interview, and great response. Yeah. That was great. I wanted to ask you quickly about your chop builder, if you remember about that. I wanted to ask you, how did you come up with the idea to do this? For the listeners that don't know, this is a wonderful workout for the guitar is the best way to put it. I mean, you even, do it as a workout video. And it is my favorite workout that I've ever seen for guitar. And it's just a series of various exercises that you do to a click and music. And it's just and tell us about how you got that going.
Oh my God, I want to do crunches right now to the click of.
Yeah.
That would be like, no.
Well, it's one of the better selling guitar videos out there. And look, at the time, it was, I think it was either the early 90s. Jane Fonda's videos she had like the top 6 the aerobics videos. That's when aerobics was huge.
Right.
And it's something my wife at the time was doing them every day, and I thought, great. You put a video cassette in, and you work out for however long it is. You just follow what they're doing for however many minutes, 40 minutes or an hour if you're physically fit enough. And I thought, well, why not the same concept for guitar? Put something in. And you just play along, and you get better at it. You can go further along,
Yeah.
And also, I like the idea that all aerobics videos, exercise videos, have music to help people get the rhythm and make the movements.
Sure.
And I thought, well, music exercises and guitar videos are really often just one guy saying, well, oh, I do it like this, and you cop this lick, and here, I just didn't want to do it like that. And I thought, why not add music to these examples so that it has some sort of foundation? You're playing a scale or something, but you've got a harmonic backing to help give it context. And, it was just a cool idea at the time. And I had some friends who were dancers. I had them hold up these cards like in a ring in a fight, fight ring. Then round 1, round 2 as it progressed, and that's how it came down. It was just an idea, and it's a pretty cool one. It's been extremely popular.
Oh yeah,
I'm actually in the process of preparing to make an online school because I've been sort of teaching all my life, and I've. For a while, I was head of the guitar department at LA Music Academy, which is a little boutique school in Pasadena, and I wrote an entire curriculum for guitar, which I'm planning to videotape and make it available worldwide on this website. I just did about 13 hours of video. That's going to be the first thing off the shelf is a blues course from the very beginning to superstar, fantastic, incredible god of blues guitar. So it starts right from the beginning to that. And,
Absolutely. Now, you've done so much in your career, and I was wondering, what advice do you have for up-and-comers who just moved to LA and they want to become a guitarist?
That's a funny question.
Right?
Let's see. I think the most important thing for a musician is to be the best possible musician they can be.
Yeah.
I tell students a lot, when you see these people that are on the top of the charts in whatever category, I always say that they've won the lottery. How often do you win the lottery? If you ever bought a ticket for a lottery, it's 1 in 10 billion, whatever it is.
Right.
Your chances are a little bit slim. So I always say, by all means, buy a ticket,
Right.
But don't put all your eggs in that basket. Ultimately, if you're a good musician, you show up on time, you take regular showers, you got a car that works, you got gear that sounds great, you've practiced the parts, you're prepared, then everyone will want to work with you. If you're a good musician, you become a valuable resource.
Right.
So that's, if you learn to read, for example, if you're a reading guitar player, you're in like the top, you're in a 5% category because almost no guitar player reads.
Oh, yeah.
So, you got to think of these things. You've got to broaden your chances out there and be well-versed in many different styles. A lot of people have blinders on. They only want to play rock, or they only want to play jazz, or they only want to play country. Be open to all styles, because there's good country, there's bad country, there's good pop, there's bad pop,
Very true.
Find what's good in each of these categories, and you'll actually have a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
Learning those styles. So that's about all I can say for that.
Yeah.
Now, do you have any resources that you use for online? I know you're not a big fan of the online. But are there
I love online. There's a lot of things that have benefited me tremendously online. See, I'm not down on the internet. I love the internet. For example, I can do recording sessions. People send me their tracks from, Buenos Aires or Norway, and I'll download their MP3 and I'll record my part in my studio, and I send it back, and they'll pay me, PayPal or whatever. I'm doing gigs. I'm doing sessions that I would never have done because I can't always be in Buenos Aires or in Oslo. You know what I mean? So there's some brilliant stuff about the internet that is incredible. What I don't dig is piracy. Obviously, I'm going to stand up against piracy whenever I can, and in whatever potential I can. But the internet itself is an incredible resource. I mean, come on.
Do you have any websites that you recommend that you think every musician should know about?
FrankGambale.com.
Yes.
Then I have playalongtracks.com.
Nice.
And pretty soon I'll have, there's also Soulmine, FrankGambaleSoulmine.com, which is my latest album with my darling wife singing.
Aww.
Now, I actually wanted to ask you if you wanted to talk a little bit about Soulmine real quick.
Sure. Soulmine. Well, I've done a lot of instrumental music over the years. And, when I sit back and I go, well, what is the music that I love and I listen to? I would have to say I like vocal songs. I was a huge fan before I ever got into jazz and got pigeonholed over there. I actually have a lot of vocal songs that I've written over the years. I was a big fan of Steely Dan, still am. Nice. Steely Dan, Earth, Wind & Fire, Police, Sting, all, the kind of sophisticated pop.
Right.
Was always my preferred tastes, Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what we did on this Soulmine record. It's sophisticated pop. It's like Steely Dan meets Anita Baker. My wife has a very particular, beautiful voice. She already had 2 albums out when I met her. Her name is Boca, B-O-C-A. And she's incredibly, we collaborated on all 10 songs, and it was a really great record. We're very, very happy with it. We made a video also with a great director. His name is Nigel Dick. He did a lot of Britney Spears and Sting videos, a whole bunch of stuff. Fortunately, he's a guitar fan, and he consented to do our video.
Nice.
So we have a video out there that's on my YouTube channel, and we're working on a second one. I've got a bunch of songs that are in pre-production at the moment, and that's something I want to continue to pursue. I'm actually really enjoying doing that kind of stuff at the moment. So yeah. Not walking away from my instrumental music, but I'm sort of because I do have a blues album in mind to do shortly, which is something people don't really realize that I do, but. First 10 years of my playing was all blues, and I think that was the best foundation I could have had for anything else that came after.
Oh yeah,
you really learn the touch of the instrument. You learn how to make the guitar scream and howl.
Absolutely.
Right. Well, unfortunately, we are down to the end of our interview. But where are places that our listeners can find out more information about you?
Well, there's always the central point, which is www.frankgambale.com. That's G-A-M, like Mary, B for boy, A-L-E.com. From there, you can find my Facebook page and my YouTube channel to catch up on the latest stuff.
Sounds good. All right, well, thank you so much, Frank, for being on the show. It's really been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Dan and Anna. It's been a pleasure talking to you guys, too.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
And for more information on Frank Gambale and the podcast, go to entertainmentdrivethru.com and subscribe on iTunes. Like and follow us on our Facebook at facebook.com/entertainmentdrivethru and our Twitter and Instagram at eDriveThru.
This is Frank Gambale, guitarist, and you're listening to Entertainment Drive-Thru.